So when I first moved to Iceland, a lot of people were surprised that I could already speak Icelandic. While living in New York, I got curious about it when I heard my wife speaking to her parents on the phone, and every now and then I heard my name come up. So I started trying to remember the words that were right before my name and right after my name. Basically, I'm saying my curiosity about the Icelandic language was born out of paranoia. Well, it was more than that, but I really had never had any intention of moving here. It was kind of a hobby, I guess, to pick up some phrases, and we knew some Icelandic people who lived in New York who I could try them out on. It was fun. But when we moved to Iceland, suddenly it became more than a hobby. Sure, most people speak English really well here, but I was confronted with the choice of either speaking English and being the eternal outsider, or learning Icelandic and finding my place in the society. When I got here, I knew a few phrases, and I would prepare myself for conversations. It must have been really strange to talk to me, and probably still is, but I was determined not to switch to English unless it was absolutely necessary. So if I was going to call somebody back for a gig, I would talk to Suna about what people would most likely say and how I could respond to that, almost like I had programmed responses. But my pronunciation was actually pretty good. I think because I'm a musician and I listen really intently, so I think I fooled a lot of people into thinking I could actually speak the language. I guess you have to start somewhere, but I quickly realized I was missing a key component: humor. I had no idea how to be funny here. And so having these programmed responses that I could say really well, or being able to order coffee and have them think I was Icelandic, that was fine. But it was an act. I wasn't Icelandic, and I was far from being able to speak the language. And even though I'm much better at it now, I still struggle with it. But luckily, I live with 3 women who have no problem correcting me. But this is an example of what I'm calling hard skills versus soft skills. Being able to execute specific things that work in certain situations versus having adaptive skills and understanding that can be applied in a variety of ways. Knowing how to ask for the toilet versus understanding the language. So today I want to look at how these different types of skills apply to creativity, and actually how does one ask where the bathroom is in Icelandic? Let's get started. Hvar klósettið? Hvar klósettið? Hvar klósettið? That might come in handy sometime, but probably not for most of you. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, if you're enjoying the video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up, and go ahead and subscribe while you're at it. If you're new here, welcome to Keep the Flow. I'm Scott McLemore, a drummer and composer living way up north in Iceland. I make these episodes every week to look under the hood of the creative process to keep our creative engines humming. And just as a side note, I highly recommend learning another language. Even if it feels like you'll never really be fluent, the process of trying to learn a language has been shown to have all sorts of benefits for our brains: better memory, more focus. So get on Duolingo or something. There's another app that's supposed to be good. I can't remember what it's called. But remember, the trying to learn is what gives us the benefits to our brains, not the actual learning, but the effort that we put in. But we have to start somewhere, whether it's learning a language or learning architecture. We usually start with learning one thing that we can do. That's our way in. Each creative field has its own language. If I wanted to become a dancer, I could learn a dance move. But even if I learned that one move flawlessly, like as if I was a professional dancer, that doesn't make me a dancer. But if I went further and I learned an entire choreographed piece, Swan Lake or something, that would be a stunning accomplishment. But if that's all I could do, I don't really understand the language of dance, do I? Or if I decide I'm going to get into architecture and I learn how to make one house perfectly, and that's it. I don't understand the why behind any part of the house. I have no idea why the house doesn't fall down, why it looks the way it does. I don't know why there's a concrete slab under it. I just know how to draw it over and over, the same house. But that doesn't make me an architect. If we don't understand the language of the creative field we're working in, we might just have mastery of a few things that allow us to get by. I'll have a double espresso. It's very nice to meet you. Where's the toilet? But being able to ask where the toilet is can be of deadly importance in certain situations. Knowing specific things really well is important in any creative field. As a drummer, understanding the difference between a shuffle and a tango is important, but knowing them well enough to be able to blend them together or juxtapose them in a piece, and to know when would be appropriate to do that, which I don't think I've ever had to do that, but I'm sure there's some situation where it might come up. But my point is, we have to find our way into the creative language that we're working in, to be able to express ourselves, to be able to communicate with collaborators, and have a better understanding of what came before us so that we know about the concrete slab under the house of creativity we're building. When we come back, we'll get into if it's possible to go too far in the other direction. Is there a perfect balance? And I'll tell you a story about my rock band in high school. Thanks for making it this far. If you're enjoying the video, please take a moment and give it a thumbs up, and go ahead and subscribe while you're at it. If you want to support the show, there are affiliate links in the description to all the gear I'm using to make these videos and podcast episodes. There's also a link to my music, and I should probably point out that I made the theme song and all the background music that you're hearing. So if you like that, there's a good chance you might like my albums. Not that it's background music. I mean, it's different than this, but just go check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. But don't be mean. The other way to support the show is by following me on Patreon, either as a free member or by picking a tier for as little as $1 a month. You get early access to episodes, extended interviews, and bonus content. Plus, you'll also get my new series, Hiking with Penny, not to be missed. And now, back to Keep the Flow. I remember being on a gig when I was just starting out. I was still in high school. This was with my buddies Lyle and Paul. We were doing a cover of Boys Don't Cry by The Cure. Great tune. But someone, and I'm not going to say who, rhymes with pile, someone counted off the song too fast. Actually, it was probably me. It was so exciting to be playing in front of other kids at a party. But about halfway through the tune, my right hand gave out. I just couldn't keep up. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it wasn't pretty. I wasn't at all prepared for that. I didn't know what to do. And look, we all have our limits. My technique is much more developed now, but there's still tempos that are out of reach for me. However, if the same situation came up today, I have ways of dealing with it that'll allow me to continue playing musically without peeing my pants. Okay, no, I didn't pee my pants in high school. At least not that time. But you know, it was a little traumatic being confronted with my limitations at a party full of fellow teenagers, exactly when I was thinking I was the coolest stick-twirling dude at the party. So part of having soft skills is also knowing our limits, knowing when to shift gears before we burn out the engine. But I've always been fascinated by this question of how much technique do we need? The answer is different for everyone. We need as much technique as we need to execute our ideas. Technique is important, but it's only part of the equation. I'm also a proponent of having more technique than we need. It's never a bad thing to have some reserve in the tank. Having more technique than we need leads to more confidence and fluidity. It doesn't mean we have to use it all the time, but it's good to know it's there if we need it. My wife, Suna, and I visited the Picasso Museum one time on a trip to Paris, and I was struck by how developed his technique was at an early age. He did incredibly realistic paintings before he got into Cubism. And looking at his sketches, I realized how the Picasso style that we all know was a very purposeful decision. It may look like he just randomly painted something with the eyes in a weird place, but it was the result of multiple sketches. He didn't paint until he knew exactly how he wanted it to look. However, if technique is only part of the equation, what's the rest? Soft skills includes a broader understanding of how things work and why. It's the difference between being able to do a thing and knowing when and why to do a thing. On the flip side, if we have all the knowledge and understanding about the why, but we don't have any hard skills, that's also kind of useless. This has always been my weak spot. I find the conceptual side of music and improvising much more interesting than the technical side. As I said in the previous episode, doing things over and over again is hard for me. So when I practice technical things, I have to inject some creativity into it to keep myself interested. But when I realized this, that was when things really started to come together for me. In my case, I have to be careful not to forget to maintain the hard skills side of things, because I know the soft side is always going to interest me more. But we need both. Having a robust functional understanding of our creative field without technical mastery is like if I learned Icelandic grammar inside and out, but I don't know how to ask for the toilet. Or if I couldn't pronounce anything in a way that Icelanders could understand. So we have to put in the work to learn specific things, and at the same time filter them through a curiosity about the why behind them. Ask the questions, why is this useful? How is this useful? Why is it important? Where does it come from? And how does it fit into my creative language? Just like with learning any new language, it's the trying to learn that's important. The act of sitting down and putting in the effort, no matter what it is. We need to remember that even if we don't conquer the specific thing we're working on, the fact that we're working on it is enough. So in conclusion, hard skills and soft skills are both important. We need both. And we're all different. We're all doing the best we can, and we're all on different journeys. If you lean more to one side or the other, I'm not throwing shade at you. At you? On you? I learned that from my daughters. No shade here. That's all I've got for today. Thanks so much for hanging out. Please take a moment to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and stop by my Patreon to catch up on Hiking with Penny. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep the flow. So I'm going to do it like this. Maybe. Is that in focus?